Welcome to the Grow Your Practice podcast. Hi, I'm your host, Chad Madden, owner of Madden Physical Therapy and Breakthrough. Join me each week as we dive into the best practices, systems, principles, tips, and tricks to help you grow your private practice. Hey everybody, Chad Madden here with the Grow Your Practice podcast. And in this episode, we're going to be covering the evolution of marketing in private practice. We're also going to be sharing a tool with you here at the end called a Flywheel, and essentially what we do here at Breakthrough in helping owners, independent private practice owners, grow their practices. So before we get into that, essentially, when you and I first got into private practice, we quickly realized, if we didn't realize so beforehand, that the lifeblood of our business was the number of new patients that were coming in. So if your story is anything like mine, when we first opened up, we, in 2,000 square feet back in 2003, we had this weekly goal, an entire business plan written on a weekly goal of 5 new patients per week. And I can remember going home. Many of you know my story where my wife literally delivered our oldest son, who is now 18 years old, literally 3 days after we opened our doors. And I can remember in those first few months going home, and every single night she would ask, did you get your 5 this week? And that meant, did we get 5 new patients? And at that time, before we had direct access here in Pennsylvania, that meant 5 physician referrals per week. And most weeks we were able to do that. In fact, within 6 months or so, we had more than doubled that initial business plan. But quickly what I learned, especially as we did get direct access and we started to learn how to market direct to the consumer, and if you're aware of what it's like here in central Pennsylvania, we had 3 large hospital systems buying up the local referral sources, and now they employ over 90% of the physicians that were one-time independent that now work in one of the hospital or healthcare systems. Also, we had this huge push in the late 2000s, 2007, 8, and 9 for physician-owned practices in our area. We have 2 large corporate competitors here in central PA. So it very much forced us quickly to learn how to market direct to the consumer. And as you may know, as you likely realize, in a referral-based business, there are essentially 3 ways, 3 target markets, 3 pathways for you to get new patients from. Number 1 is what I've mentioned, which is what we built the practice on in the first few years, which was physician referrals. So this can include nurse practitioners, PAs, whatever is allowed within your practice act, but let's call it a professional referral. So that's number 1. Number 2 is reactivation and word of mouth referrals from your patient list. And number 3 is the general public. So if you think about it, and regardless of the type of private practice you are, if you're in conservative healthcare, you likely can receive physician referrals, nurse practitioners, PAs, dentists, etc. But the bulk of your business is going to come from the latter 2. So your patient list, which is likely the most valuable asset in your business, especially if you know how to use it, and also going to direct to the consumer. And what happened shortly thereafter is when I initially met Carl Madiola, the co-founder here at Breakthrough, who was the head of online sales at Tesla when we met and was researching physical therapy and looking to bring his software skills into the conservative healthcare market, was doing research, is essentially what he believed to be true in marketing a healthcare private practice is exactly what I believed in as well, because I had to do that to survive, to allow our practice to survive. And ultimately, once we started Breakthrough, the purpose that we agreed on right away was, the purpose of the company is to help people solve their health challenges naturally. And at least in the beginning, that was with physical therapy. And, now we're working with naturopathic doctors, podiatrists, chiropractors, etc. But the big idea, though, it was that the three target markets, and also what we wanted to do was differentiate ourselves within the marketplace. And the thing that very much differentiated our practice, especially when we were going direct to the consumer, was we hosted workshops, and very much that has been the calling card of Breakthrough, is doing these lectures, seminars, webinars, or again we term them workshops. And I had been doing them. My first one, I believe, was in 2001 here in Central PA, and Carl and I had read a book together at the same time called The One Thing. I believe it's by John Keller, if I remember correctly. And it was, what essentially that same Jim Collins hedgehog concept. What is unique about our approach? And, it really was the workshop, because the workshop allows us to take somebody who is completely unaware of what our healthcare services, our physical therapy services can do for them, and ultimately convert them over into a paying patient, and do it fairly quickly. It is the heaviest load. It's the largest lift, whatever you want to call it. Also, full transparency, it is not. It was not originated by us, and in fact, workshops, the origination goes. It's more than 150 years old. If you want to research, Elizabeth Longfellow was the first female physician in the United States. I believe she was in New York. And when she graduated, the AMA, or the AMA, American Medical Association predecessor, whoever that was, within their guidelines, physicians were not allowed to market their services. And you've likely heard somewhere along the line, if you're in healthcare, that you'll hear other clinicians say things like, the only way to grow a practice, or the right way to grow a practice, is provide high quality of care, excellent care, and grow by word of mouth referral. And that stems from this guideline that is from the 1800s. By the way, that was reversed in the early 1900s, but the thought still has been passed on, at least verbally. So anyhow, Elizabeth Longfellow, first female physician. You can imagine at the time how difficult it must have been for her. She started doing a lecture series and quickly built a very successful practice. So it was a way for her to advertise her services without getting in trouble with the AMA, because she was advertising a lecture. She wasn't advertising her services. And for us, we're very much doing the same thing. Now, back in 2001, I didn't know the story of Elizabeth Longfellow. I learned it later. But nonetheless, it's not an original idea. It's been around for hundreds of years, or at least 150 years. So we very much focused on and built the entire Breakthrough community around this idea of doing workshops. However, workshops are the one thing. They're a differentiator for many practices. They're not the only thing. And as we go through, and especially when we're talking about growing a practice, whatever industry we're in within the healthcare services sector, we want to talk about, number one, not ignoring our patient list, right? Your patient list is made up of people who've already exchanged money with you, whether it's through insurance or through a cash pay program, co-insurance, copay, etc. They have exchanged money with you. Hopefully, if you are providing that high quality of care, you've done so at such a level that they know, like, and trust you. They're likely to come back to you for additional needs in the future, and they're the most likely people to refer other friends and family to you, right? Other people that they care about, with usually some light nudging. We'll call it professional nudging. So again, workshops are the one thing. They are a differentiator, but they're not the only thing. And I think it would be a mistake if you would only be doing workshops, only focused on chasing the shiny object, without covering your bases and first marketing to your patient list as well. So at Breakthrough, we've advocated an all-around approach from the get-go of taking care of your patient list first, and then expanding into the cold market, people that are not aware of what you can do with your healthcare services and your products in terms of helping them get better, overcome their healthcare challenges. So right now, I want to share a tool with you in terms of the most up-to-date way of how we think about this. And this is, again, it's called Flywheel. This is from Jim Collins, if you've read Good to Great. And essentially what you have here is a way to think about, and well, let me give you the idea of a flywheel. So Good to Great or Great by Choice, any of the Jim Collins works, highly recommend it. Also, he has a shorter memo book. I think it's like 40 or 50 pages specifically on the flywheel. I highly encourage you to go to Amazon or Audible or wherever you consume books, find that and read that material so you can relate it to your practice as well. But the idea of a flywheel is usually it's like once you get it going, once you get considerable momentum, it takes very little effort to keep it going. So there's a way that we implement this and apply it to our private practice overall. This is how we think about our flywheel here at Breakthrough in terms of helping practices grow. So I'm going to start in the upper left corner. If you can't see it, that's okay. I'll talk you through it. If you're not watching this on video and you're merely listening to it, but in the you can, to start with, you want to picture a circle. In the upper left quadrant, let's call it, we have attract, right? And so how do we attract new patients in, new plans of care in to our practice? Well, we have some sort of advertising. And in this specific flywheel, what we specialize at Breakthrough is online advertising. We also help owners do offline advertising merely by providing them copy, but they go out and do the placement if they're going to be offline. For the owners that we work with, we literally run the online advertising for them. So that's creating the copy, creating the campaigns, going on the major online advertising platforms, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Google, and placing ads for them there, maintaining those ads. We also provide done-for-you campaigns. So, for example, we have found it best if through testing to be diagnostic specific, not treatment specific, but advertise a specific diagnosis. There's some preliminary information and testing that it's possible also to lead with a treatment if it's very unique. But for right now, what we do are done for you campaigns built around a specific diagnosis. For example, could be rotator cuff, or recently working with John McGee, we've picked up a lot of steam with neuropathy as well, and that's working out really well for practice owners. So done for you campaigns, meaning not only the advertising, but also in terms of the attraction, what happens after the person clicks on the ad. We solve that through automation, and we'll talk about that here in a second. We also provide pre-built landing pages, and we're constantly testing the copy there, and also the formats and layouts, etc. But what does a landing page do? If you've ever clicked on an ad and you went to basically a single site, single page URL, and it asked you for your name and your email address or your phone number, something like that, for you to get something in exchange for that, typically a report, that is a landing page. So that's those three things: online advertising, done for you campaigns, pre-built landing pages fall into the attract. Well, once we attract them, once that person in your community has raised their hand and said, yes, I have a shoulder problem, what is the next thing that has to happen? And this is what the majority of practice owners have completely left out, right? We fell in love with marketing. Oh no, we need new patients. Oh my gosh, I'm going to have to learn this whole other thing. It's marketing. Okay, now we get the marketing in. Now we have interest. Now we're getting views, we're getting clicks, etc. But what do we do with those once they happen? Well, we need to convert them, and we call it conversion. So within conversion, we broke that down into 3 areas that we help owners with. Number 1 is lead management. And the average owner, and confession, I did this myself early in our direct to consumer marketing efforts, is we were trying to manage everything out of an Excel or Google spreadsheet. And that can become a disaster because we drop balls, we don't follow up with people the right way. So Breakthrough has built out solutions to help owners with lead management from people who respond to ads. Included in that is the second component here, which is email automation. So once somebody clicks on an ad, there are probably some things that you'd like to do before they come to the event or come to the appointment, such as indoctrination. You can provide indoctrination as providing valuable goodwill and content so that by the time that person who is completely unaware of you, remember, this isn't somebody from your patient list. This isn't somebody who knows, likes, and trusts you yet. But what email automation and indoctrination allow you to do are establish um, across the board, one to many, your authority, celebrity, and expertise, and uh, build valuable goodwill before that person even steps through your front door. And then finally, in Convert, we have two-way texting, which is extremely valuable. Our group just used this. We have a practice in Idaho, Jared Pugmire, and his the marketer for that practice, Debbie, I believe it's Lamson is her last name. She ran a campaign with two-way texting, went back and had targeted some specific people on their list and had a ton of conversions. Our group, we because Debbie shared that with us, we used the Breakthrough software, did the same exact thing with the two-way texting. And I know in one practice location, we ended up with 10 new plans of care just from going back and texting people who were on our list, a certain segment. So that's conversion. So attraction is we have advertisements within the community that get people to raise their hand that could potentially benefit from our service. Conversion is helping those people move along and helping them have a better relationship with us, view us in a better light with that authority, celebrity, expertise, establishing that, and ultimately moving them from ad responder closer to plan of care, and ultimately having them sign up for a plan of care. Now, once we do the attraction and conversion, what is left? Well, we need to measure that, right? We need to get better, do more of what's working, less of what doesn't. So within the Breakthrough program, we have software that specifically helps owners measure. And there's three ways that we look at that. Number one is ROI intelligence. So where should we be spending more money? Where should we be spending less? For example, for us and many other owners, rotator cuff and shoulder in an outpatient orthopedic clinic has been the number one winner by far. And yes, they're depending on the area. There are others that are working well in outpatient orthopedics. Same thing with neuropathy. What are the components of neuropathy that get us a better ROI? And quick comment on this, because I've seen a few threads in various forums that essentially are saying that, at this time, as a private practice owner, shame on us for trying to balance the books. And I think that's a very rough angle. I haven't seen anybody who is opposed to, who, is in opposition of profitability for the practice owner. I haven't seen anybody, again, that opposes that, who has also proposed a reasonable financial model. So you and I, have to balance our books, have to keep our doors open. So yes, it is okay to look at ROI intelligence, specifically when we're talking about attraction and conversion and the marketing function of our private practice. Then the second component here under measure is benchmark insights. An example of that would be last year we had, I think, 12 or 13 different presenters for our private practice. Madden and Gilbert here, PT, and we wanted to look at who is performing really well in the workshops, who has room for improvement, and what is the benchmark? What should we be aiming for? So we had our two most successful workshop presenters were converting over 70%. And when we looked at the average, they were well beyond what the average was across all 200 plus practices that we're working with. So we quickly looked at what they were doing, and they both had a unique, we'll call it a unique flair of what they were doing within the workshop that was a little bit above and beyond the standard workshop, the control workshop that most of our other presenters were doing. So what we did is that quickly became a best practices, and then we rolled that out and shared it with everybody else on the platform. And then finally, under measure, we also have training and coaching, because for every outlier in terms of overperformance, there is a bell curve, and typically there is room for improvement on the other end. So that includes the workshop presentation. It includes what the clinician is doing in the room to convert from that first appointment, whether it's a free screen or an initial evaluation or a discovery visit, whatever you call it, over to a full plan of care and getting that plan of care acceptance. So we take a look at that and we provide coaching for that. We also provide coaching for the actual caller, the person in your office who is speaking with that person, that potential patient who has clicked on the ad. So in essence, within the flywheel, the full circle is attract, convert, measure, back to attraction, conversion, measure. And it creates a very nice long-term successful marketing system where you can gain and ultimately get better control of the market share that you and your practice have within your community, leading to greater outcomes, leading to fulfillment of your purpose of helping more people as well. So we went through quite a bit there in terms of marketing. This is the most evolved pattern for how we're looking at marketing and what we do here at Breakthrough and helping private practices grow. Hope you found this episode enjoyable, and you also start taking a look at how you can implement this into your private practice as well. If you're looking for more tools and resources, you can head on over to getbreakthrough.com/resources. We have a lot of valuable tools over there for you, not just on marketing, but on other areas of private practice growth as well. Again, that's getbreakthrough.com/resources. Remember to visit getbreakthrough.com to access our free resource library designed specifically for private practice growth. While you're there, make sure you register for a complimentary growth assessment to learn about potential opportunities for growth in your local market. Again, thank you for tuning into the Grow Your Practice podcast and supporting our mission to help people in pain get back to normal naturally.